I had a husband who was diagnosed in 2000 with Alzheimer's disease. And so he was getting worse, and his neurologist kept telling me that I needed to get involved with a support group. And so that's what brought me to Luann, and discovered all of the resources that were available through the Alzheimer's Association, and also the wonderful sharing and education that it was to me. I was really thrilled with it, and it helped me more than I can even tell you.
I treaded water when I first got in Alzheimer's. I just did this and did that, but now I'm about ready to swim. It's going to be upstream, but, but I'm ready to swim.
The Alzheimer's and Dementia Society came about, our founding day was March 23rd, 2012. And the reason why this was started was because we live in a rural area, and actually many services are not available in smaller areas, especially farming communities that are a ways out. And the big national corporations that are nonprofit that used to serve this area could no longer do it financially. And so we felt that it was important to us that we kept services available to rural areas. And we had a lot of clients that we were serving that we just didn't want to have things left with minimal services. And so that's why we started the Alzheimer's and Dementia Society.
This should not have been much of a surprise because Nancy's mom and both her aunts all had Alzheimer's in their personal lives and died from that. So it shouldn't have been any shock at all, but I never even considered it until when Nancy got to be in her early 60s and things started missing from her mind. Then the clues were there, and it was pretty easy to see where we were headed. Oh, it affects your life totally, completely. The schedule is now 24/7 dependency. Where I used to be able to go out for a bike ride or a walk or pickleball or whatever I might enjoy, now that's no longer possible without someone watching and being a caregiver in my place. So it's 7 days a week, and it's all night, and it's all day, and she just can't be left alone, period. It's not too bad at first. It just gets a little worse and a little worse. So her rate's of decline's about 20% a year of cognitive recall and abilities, and it's definitely 20% a year.
We went home, and it took me a while to kind of realize that what we had gone in and that what he had been tested for was what I had suspicioned all along. But to connect the dots for me was kind of an emotional experience, even though I knew. It's probably very similar to somebody who suspicions they may have cancer, but once the diagnosis has been given, it's still a very emotional letdown.
I think we both were in denial for a long time, and I finally accepted it probably about a year ago. So it has taken me about 6 years, but Mom is still in denial. Anytime I talk with her, and the topic comes up, she gets upset. She said, "Are you sure? Did someone tell me that I have Alzheimer's?" "Yes, Mom, the doctor told me." And and then she gets very upset, and she said, "Well, what's going to happen to me? Okay, I guess I have to make changes." And then she'll go to sleep and gets up and doesn't remember anything. And what I do, I try to, when we watch TV, and I'll say, oh, let's hear about Alzheimer's. And she said, oh, I hope that never happens to me. So till this day, she has not accepted that she has it. But I do notice that what's happening is that she knows something is wrong with her. She just doesn't know what it is. So I think that's causing her to be very depressed because she doesn't know, she's confused. But it's hard for me to say you have Alzheimer's.
I had told Bob, I said, Bob, the garden needs to be weeded. We just have this small little garden. We had some squash and some bell peppers and some tomatoes. The tomato plants were coming along. They had some nice little green tomatoes on them. And I said, honey, now the weeds are kind of growing up around this stuff. I want you to weed the garden for me. Well, he not only weeded the garden, but he took all the green tomatoes off of the tomato plants, and then he planted them. And he came in just like this little kid saying, Mommy, you'll be surprised. We're going to have more tomatoes than you can ever imagine. And I went, okay, how did you do that, dear sweet husband? And he said, well, I took the tomatoes off the plants and then I just plugged them in the ground. And I could be frustrated, but it's a garden. It doesn't mean anything. It's not a human being. It's not a human soul that we're dealing with in the garden. But he is. He's a human being. He's a human soul. And he's my first priority, not tomatoes that have been plucked off of the vine and stuck in the ground. So you have to really kind of consider what's really important to you as a caregiver and how you have to learn how to let go of things that may have been really important when you were planting the plants in the first place. Another thing that I find really difficult is that I married a man, and now my man is turning into a little boy.
It's been a really devastating thing to learn, and you just don't know what that looks like. You don't know what the future looks like, and we're always shocked by new developments, new things that my mom does, because we don't really know as much about it as maybe we would like to.
I had no idea where to go, who to talk to. And one day I thought, there's got to be an Alzheimer's Association in St. George. So I just went to the phone book. And there it was, and I called, and Mitzi was the one that answered the phone. And she invited me to come into the office, so I did. And she talked to me. I probably was there for an hour.
So right away we got her into a 10-week program. The Alzheimer's had a 10-week program for help for caregivers and the patients. So, and that was the beginning. It was very, very difficult because I was in denial and so was Mom.
I couldn't get enough. I came all the time, and I really was very involved in the whole thing, the whole process.
I think the program had a whole lot more to offer than I was willing to partake of. Does that make sense? I think there is a source there of which I really didn't take advantage. I just kind of fiddled around with it and said, oh yeah. Where do I go from here? And then I thought, well, is this for me? And then I gave it a little bit of effort, but now I'm starting to come, I think, starting to climb.
This is a particular series that we've developed over time and have a tremendous amount of professional volunteers that come in to that group. It's a 10-week series, and it is for the person who's been suffering with memory loss in the early stages and their primary care partner. So that could be a spouse, it could be a friend, a significant other, an adult child, for example, and they come to this class together. And it's really interesting because that first class, they're kind of hesitant. They're not so sure they want to be there, the person with memory loss. And then after a couple of times, you just see a light come on in them, because now they're coming to a place where they had felt hopeless about what was happening to them, and now they're seeing hope. They're seeing things that you can do. They're being congratulated because they have the wherewithal to be proactive in this disease and to make something happen for positive. And so we teach them the things that can happen, the pillars of brain health, for example, things that they can do to improve brain health, things that they can do to function better and function longer. And then also we cover the other side too. There are things that need to happen, such as preparation, legal preparation, financial preparation. They need to have everything set in order and have a voice. And in case this disease does progress quickly and they lose their voice, we want to empower them with a voice and making decisions while they are in these early stages. And so we have a lawyer that volunteers and comes and spends a whole hour, sometimes more, answering questions and presenting on trusts and wills. And we have a social worker that talks about different medical preparations and documents and so forth that need to be done. We have nurses come in and talk about safety and preparation. Social workers that talk about how to handle when there's depression or other mental health issues that come in. So within this 10-week series, by the time that they graduate, and we have a graduation photo and a graduation day at the end, they feel like they've made friends with the volunteers and with other families that are dealing with the same issues. And now they've developed a great deal of resources and people that they can go to for any questions that they have. And then following that 10-week series, every month we meet together again as a graduate group in a separate support group and continue that support and that camaraderie and friendship. And that's a really exciting thing to do because it's so positive and you're dealing with people before the problems happen, so you might be able to prevent some challenges and sadness rather than dealing with the crisis that comes afterwards.